5 o'clock now.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda done. Excuses. What are you afraid of?
Hello, live community. It's Wednesday. Did you know what you're one of God's greatest creations? It's Jackie Porter, the financial confidant, and it's live at 5. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the music. So, our divas today, hoping you're enjoying the vibe, but it is Mary Mary. And I love this. It's a great motivational song because they're talking about getting out of bed when you want to put the covers back on your face. You've been there, Lianne?
Yeah, this morning.
So the reality is we're talking about taxes today because, so get up, because I find that people tend to feel that they can put the covers over their heads when it comes to taxes. We'll just not deal with our taxes, right? Maybe that's what's going on with people when it comes to income taxes. And we're going to spill the tea and get into it with Lianne today. But I thought I would start off by asking a question to the live community. I want to know how many of you are intentional about the amount of income taxes that you pay. Do you have a plan where you meet with your accountant more than once a year, especially only at tax time? So are you someone, and I'm talking to the guilty and the innocent out there, not blaming anybody, but just you guys know who you are. Are you the person who only talks to your accountant at tax time, or are you having those intentional conversations about paying less income taxes throughout the year? And I say this because Lianne and I are going to get into it. Lianne, I'm so excited to have you on our live today. She's a CA. She's also the founder of Wealthnuvo. So she's going to have a ton of tips to share on the conversations you need to be having with your accountant. And I say this again because I find that taxes is just something that people tend to take for granted. And this is an important time of the year to be thinking about how much income taxes that you pay, because you can actually make a decision to pay less income taxes, right? And I'm going to say that again. You can make a decision that this is the year I'm going to make the money that I give to CRA a smaller amount. So how is that? Because we can only control one side of the balance sheet, right? We can only control how much we spend, how much income taxes we pay. We cannot control what inflation is. We can't control what we can't also control what interest rates are, but we can decide today that this is the day we're going to pay less taxes. So let me get Lianne Hannaway in here so we can talk more about it. Welcome to the live community, Lianne.
Thank you for having me, Jackie. I'm happy here to talk to your audience. I see all the things that you do. It's been a while, and I'm just really excited to be here and talk about a topic that people don't talk too often about, which is not only taxes, but, just how money flows and moves through our lives and how we should be more intentional about that.
Yes, definitely more mindful. I mean, you are the founder of Wealthnuvo, so I want to talk to you a little bit about that. But tell me a little bit about kind of your journey, because you have a fairly esteemed career going into, the CA side of things and then moving into the wealth space. So tell me a little bit about your journey, because we love hearing about the women who come on our shows, the guests who come on the show, how they ended up where they are.
Yeah, so I'm Canadian born from Caribbean immigrant parents, grew up in the center of Canada, Winnipeg, not Toronto.
Winnipeg? See,
Winnipeg.
I thought I knew you, Leanne, and you're just now with Winnipeg, like seriously?
After all this time. I always thought I was gonna one day have my own shoe store. That was
really?
An entrepreneur and it was called Strut, and we were gonna import shoes from Europe. And, and on my way there, I was like, I had to put myself through school, help out with the family a lot. So I was like, well, let me get a good base. And I actually decided to become an accountant. And as you said, I was a CA, although now today we say CPA. All of us are together, but I did start out as a CPA, working at one of the big four, working my way up there, both here in Canada as well as in France. And then moving to industry and, running half of the finance department over at the Toronto Stock Exchange. And all that time, then I was like, what happened to that dream of being an entrepreneur, And
I'm thinking live community. You think you know people because I'm finding out so much about Lianne. If you ask me, I'd be like, she's one of the people I know in my neighborhood. Remember Sesame Street? This is
yeah.
In my neighborhood. But now I'm like, I don't even know Lianne. So
like, who is this woman? But yeah, I think through that experience and meeting a lot of like people who are founders, starting businesses, working a lot with like, heads of businesses and CEOs, I was like, I really want to help more and more of these folks who are women, who are especially Black women, women of color, to lead their organizations and to have their financial back. So that's kind of how I arrived at Wealthnuvo, really focusing on the mindset when it comes to making more money, also money management. I think, like you said, you have to be really intentional about these things and, just really helping women succeed. And that's led me to join, helping out various small business entrepreneurs who have big dreams, as well as professional women, really manage their money and figure out how they want to grow as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a focus thing. So it's great that you're in that space, Lianne, because I think it is a focus thing with women who are running their own businesses. We kind of think of money last, even though if we're starting a business, it should be the opposite, right? We should be thinking about money first.
I think oftentimes that's the case, or it's more like there's an apprehension around charging, or like really feeling like, well, I'm going to do this for free for a while to get my feet wet. And then the time comes to charge never comes, or that conversation is, I'm going to discount, where there's no room to pay for, marketing, no room to pay for bringing on folks. There's no room to think about taxes, and think about, if you are paying taxes, that actually means your business is doing well.
That's it. And you say that, and I think this is a time of the year where I'm literally, I call myself a professional nagger, and I say this with pride, live community, because my clients are like the people you're talking about. And it's kind of getting them into a meeting this time of the year, the last 4 months of the year, where I'm like, we need to talk about your income taxes. What are things looking like? In terms of planning, let's strategize. How much did you earn this year? How much income taxes are you going to pay? Did you pay enough? Did you pay too little? What's our strategy? Because people tend to wait, don't they?
Yeah. And I think some of that hesitation is just like the fear of not knowing, right? Like, and besides taxes, which is always a big cost, that's the biggest cost you pay, right? Is the fear of not knowing what's coming down the pipe. That's the biggest expense you will ever have in your life. So let's figure out ways to really minimize that. And with more and more people, working full time, but also starting businesses. I don't like to use the term side hustle. I think, businesses, actual businesses, now's the time to, like you said, to really think about it, right? To peel the onion, rip off the Band-Aid, and let's get into the numbers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Get out of bed, like Mary was saying, get out of bed, take the covers off your head and get at it, like get to it, get to that goal that you want. And if you need support, reach out for it. So let's get into some of the tips. What are some of the tips that you're thinking women need to know before you're at people who are planning for 2023? What do they need to know to prepare for this?
I really think the first thing is really itemizing your expenses, like getting a handle on collecting where your money is being spent, right? Because not every dollar that goes through your business is treated equally. Particularly from a tax perspective, right? So getting into the habit of logging all your expenses, could it be, materials that you're using to run your business? Could you be paying out dividends, not necessarily dividends, but drawings from your business. How is that going to be treated? Even things like meals and expense and entertainment. I love small business owners who love to do that meals and entertainment, but that's not fully deductible to you.
No, it isn't. And they don't always know that, right? They think they can write the whole thing off.
Yeah.
I see that as well with leases, right? Sometimes I do a lot of work with lawyers, and some of them like to live high off the hug, and you guys know who you are.
Yes.
And they're like, let me get $1,000 or $1,500 a month lease so I can write it off. You still got to pay for it, right?
Even still got to pay for it.
What does it look like? And what, at the end of the day, is that the best use of your funds if you're trying to get a write-off?
Yeah, it could really make a big difference at tax time, because not necessarily every dollar that goes through your business is going to be 100% deductible. And also there could be things that you are doing as a part of your business that can be tax deductible. So, we have a lot of us working at home. There's deductibility that you can have there, not just for the space that you're in, but all the incidentals, itemizing internet, itemizing, your phone, all these things can go into costs that you make that are now deductible for tax purposes, and you could pay less money. So the important thing is to really have an itemization of everything that you're spending in your business and adjacent to your business.
So what I'm hearing from you is that, first of all, people need to be mindful and intentional about paying less taxes, which I'm totally with you on this. I'm so passionate about taxes, Lianne, as I said to you. I've been working since around 14, 15 and working a couple of jobs. And who knew that someone like a CRA rep would come after me at like the age of 16 for being behind on my income tax bills. And so I've developed a passion for taxes since then, tax planning and paying the government as little as I possibly can. So mindset's key, paying less and getting organized. I think once you decide you want to pay less, it's what I'm hearing from you coming to the end of the year is getting organized, because going back to those lawyer clients of mine, I find that they aren't always itemizing properly. They might get sloppy with, do they have one credit card that they're writing all their expenses off through? Or are they using one credit card, then another one, paying some stuff from debit? It's going to be a hard road.
It's going to be a mess. Yeah, it's going to be a mess.
Have you met these people?
I love lawyers. I love lawyer clients, because they are different from other clients, because I really feel they feel that they can just argue their way with CRA kind of stuff. So that makes them work in a little bit different way. Whereas I've often seen it's other people who are fearful of what CRA
you might do.
So they want to be in a position where like either CRA doesn't bother them, or if CRA comes a calling, that they have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed, So I love working with lawyer clients, because I really feel like, there's still something in them that thinks I could argue my way out of this. It's fine.
You don't want to. And I think what I see on my side of things is lawyers who weren't organized throughout the year. So they're like, okay, we'll just put this all under my drawers and I'll take out so much, just because they don't really have a keen sense of what their business spent money on.
Yeah. And again, that's so key. It's going back to that same point. And it leads me into my next one, which is really, have you organized to work with an accountant? I like off the top that you said it's not just a once a year conversation, right? If you're going to be making the most out of this, but a lot of folks get to, their March deadline or their June deadline, depending on what kind of business they have. And they're like, help, but those transactions have occurred 18 months ago.
That's
There's
right.
little things that you can do at that point that are going to really make it a strategic exercise. It's more of a compliance exercise. And if you're treating it as a compliance exercise, there's a lot less flexibility that you can have, And if you're in the mindset of spending all the money that comes into the business, like I like to teach my clients in money management, create a separate account where you take like 10% of what comes in and you just put it into that account to pay for taxes, so you're not surprised. But if you haven't been doing kind of things like that, it could be a big bill at the end that you might not have the money to pay for. So I think really engaging an accountant early in the process is fundamental to the process of paying the right amount of taxes, but maybe even a little bit less than that.
100%. So getting the mindset, then deciding that you're going to itemize your expenses and then getting an accountant early on in the process, because then they can put you on a program. So if you're that person who has, a few different credit cards, you have a debit card, and you're, this person who's got this mess that you're going to try to figure out later on, you're not doing yourself a service and being able to keep track of it. And you're not doing your accountant or bookkeeper a service and trying to keep track of it either. So let them help to get you on a program. If you struggle in this area, and hey, again, no blame, no shame out there, get a professional to help you put all of these things together, figure out what's the best way to stay on top of your taxes, track those expenses, so that at the end of the year, you're not like pulling out your hair, staying under the covers because you just can't deal with.
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned the B word. And the B word is bookkeeper.
Yes, the B word. There's so many words. I call the budget the B word, by the way.
Oh, B is budget's the B word as well too. But that B word, bookkeeper, because not all accountants are equal. You know, we have accountants that are specialized in tax.
That's right.
We have accountants who are more like a bookkeeper. They might not have that formal training to go through the whole accounting route, but bookkeepers are very essential to really kind of keeping all that organized, and they make the process of working with your tax accountant a lot easier, and then you could have like the accountants that are more analytical, they're your controller type accountants, which will help you with data, which will help you with like thinking about the analytics, which will help you with the money management side of the business.
So Lianne, help us with this, because I think this is a thing. Because listen, as an advisor and working with clients' accountants, you have no idea how many times I've been drafted into accounting meetings to talk accounting speak and translate it for my clients, because they have no idea. They have no way to know if they're sitting in front of the right accountant for them. If you're someone who is struggling around finding an accountant and you're trying to find the right one for your circumstances around tracking your money, tracking where your money is going, your expenses are, and getting a good bookkeeper, what are some of the essential things that they should be knowing or asking someone?
So, yeah, I think it's like a dissection of your business. Are you incorporated? Because if you're not incorporated yet, but you have a business, you might be able to get away with maybe using some of these automated tools that we have that would do automated bookkeeping for you, and either deciding whether you want to do your taxes yourself or hire a tax accountant in order to do that work for you once a year. But if you are and maybe if you are incorporated and you don't have the time to do all these types of activities, then you're going to definitely want to engage a bookkeeper, and in looking for that bookkeeper, you want to find someone who understands your industry, understands your business. Like, it's very, very key to just not go to any friendly face, but
Joe Blow Schmo accountant.
Yeah.
Or even Jesse Blow.
Yeah. Like even in my latest iteration, finding, even for myself, a bookkeeper who understands an online business, an online coaching business, because the intricacies are different. If you're running a brick and mortar business, if you're running a law firm, where they have responsibilities to the legal society for trusts, like keeping money in trust, all those specialties, you're going to want your accountant to understand, because it's going to make your bookkeeper in this case, also your accountant, but mainly your bookkeeper, to really make sure that the books are being handled correctly and being handled right. So I always say, you're going to either need a bookkeeper, and whether that's online or automated with some of the tools out there, or finding someone who's live, you're either going to need a tax accountant. And again, if you're maybe not fully incorporated and you can do it on your own, maybe you can.
The people I've met, I have to say, get an accountant, because I find business owners, and in particular, like if you're a T4 income person, chances are you could do your income taxes yourself, because it's pretty straightforward. You're getting a T4. Really, from there, it's not that complicated. But if all of a sudden, if you're someone who is a business owner, self-employed or incorporated, the challenge is, what can I deduct? what expenses are deductible, like how should I organize things? And so as you mentioned, Lianne, having an accountant familiar with your industry can help you streamline how you're going to do your bookkeeping. And who, like in my specific case, what I do is my accountant was chosen by my bookkeeper was chosen by my accountant. They work very closely together. He understands the financial industry. I have all these other things that I do and all my other hustles. And, so we go through I go through my tax file three times a year, in this time of the year, in March, and in June.
Mm-hmm.
So just so that we're talking about what's going on in my business. So I'm not telling you something I'm not doing myself. And it's sometimes challenging if you're left to do it yourself. I know, I've done it myself too.
Yeah.
It's a lot on top of all of your business responsibilities. So I'm primarily speaking to business owners. That could be lawyers or other self-employed business owners. And it's just really, what's your capacity? If you're someone comfortable with numbers, then by all means, if you enjoy that type of thing and you'd rather not you take that time to make money, that's the other thing. Can I be making more dollars doing my zone of genius, or do I want to spend that time digging into numbers? Or would I just prefer someone to help me streamline it, so I spend the key time going through my numbers? Because really the other thing I do as well, Lianne, is I get my accountant, my bookkeeper, to send me my numbers monthly. So I can see monthly where my business is.
Exactly. And those are where you can make in-year decisions about offers you want to put out, pricing, when you can hire, and all that kind of good stuff. You can't do that at the end of the year when all is already said and done. You're already moving on to the next year, and finding this mythical time in the future to figure this out. It's not the best use of your time, right? So I really do think finding an accountant who knows your industry can really help you accelerate the way you are moving in your business, because they'll also be able to tell you what other folks are doing and whether you are an outlier, whether you are, how to get back onto that waterway, get right back into line. So I think it's really critical, so.
Are there specific questions you think that, like, because I think sometimes people are also intimidated by financial people. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting down and I'm like, I think about myself, 25 years ago, young person, naive about what professionals actually are and what they do. So someone sits down and says, yeah, I'm fantastic. You need to talk. And then they also give you attitude when they're going to try to take your money out of your pocket once you sign them on, right? So I'm great. I'm not going to talk to you, So how, first of all, if somebody does that, gut check, I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
But I may not know. Maybe you're the sweetest person in the world, but you have no knowledge and can't really help me either.
Yeah. I think you're going to have to ask questions of, what types of clients do you serve? Do you still have clients like I do? How do you like to work? I have some folks who it's like, you have to send in all your stuff via this portal or by this time. Like, how are the ways that you are going to engage with me? And does that actually work for me? How long does it take you to respond to emails?
Yeah.
I think that's also a big one.
Right. How often are we going to meet, Lianne?
How often are we going to meet?
Is it one and done? Will I only see you at tax time?
Yeah. And is there things that I'll get before the meeting? What comes out of that meeting? I think all those things are really key to working with a professional accountant who really knows and understands what it's like to work with business owners, multi-passionate business owners and what that looks like. But I also think that it's also very interesting that we do have to pay for that service, right? So I think this goes back to like mindset, right? Like, you're getting value for this. If you're treating it just like a compliance exercise, you are not going to be getting the benefit out of it. It's the proactive advice that you can get out of it. So it goes back to mindset into how are you setting your prices? I love all the speakers out there that are like, especially to women, double your prices, double them again.
No, it's true, and I think that asking those questions will help you basically sort of vet out who are the tax filers in the midst of there and who are the advisors, because there are people who only will want, if you're asking how do we work, how are we going to work together, and they're like, give me your taxes in, by the
I'll
end
get
of
back to you with-
February. And then that's it. I'm just going to do your income taxes and we'll have a quick conversation then. Because how long can the conversation be when, you're like basically your back's up against the wall, against the deadline? We're not going to have detailed conversations about my business, what's going to happen next year, what are my plans for next year, what will change. Those conversations are not going to happen, are they, in March?
Yeah, exactly.
or February for that matter.
And I think the business owner has to be comfortable having those conversations and having the comfort to talk about numbers. Like sometimes there is a little bit of, oftentimes when you start working with a client, they are coming to you and already thinking, oh, I don't know if my numbers are good. I know I might have to pay something, and that apprehension shouldn't be in the relationship that you have with your accountant. So also just kind of reflect on what in you could prevent that being a successful relationship.
So it's letting go of the shame, and everything goes back to mindset, doesn't it? And feeling like you can have a conversation with somebody where you're honest about your circumstances and you're being supported. You feel supported by the person that's helping you. Because the other thing you don't want is, really? This is where you're at?
You don't have any receipts for that? Like, no, you don't want that. You don't want that.
Yeah. So going back to the whole gut check, it's somebody that you have to feel comfortable having those honest conversations about your business that you feel you can rely on. And I tell people, Lianne, I call myself a confidant because it's about two things. One, people feeling that they could trust me, that they can tell me their deepest secrets. And this is Fort Knox. It's not going anywhere because I have lots of people who are related, who are friends. So we just can't have these kinds of conversations where you're wondering, I wonder what Lianne knows, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's not just enough to be nice and be people who you can talk to. You also want to know that people know their stuff. So the confidant part is you need to have confidence in the person and you need to feel like you can talk to them.
Confidence and competent, right?
That's confidant.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So that's what you want to have with any professional relationship that you have, live community, is you need to have that balance, or otherwise it's going to be a relationship that doesn't work. And taxes are just too important. Again, it's a decision. It's a decision you make in terms of how much income taxes that you pay. Why do you think for women it's so hard to have these kinds of conversations?
Yeah, I think these are conversations that, the system doesn't want us to have, right? Like that's just literally the way it's designed. I'm calling it the system. I'm on your life. If it was
I feel like it's almost like a Meghan and Harry thing. It's the system that's working against them.
Institution,
It's the institution.
I think that we're never really taught to talk about money. I always think about, you were saying you started working since you were 14, I bet you started working before that, you just weren't compensated, right?
You're 100% right. I'm a camp counselor, and I remember doing this. We had to do portaging of the canoes, Lianne. I'm making these kids their meals, portaging canoes, overnight trips. You know how much I made the whole month? $400 for the month, doing that for 2 weeks at a time.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm not doing this. This is like above and beyond what I'm like. This is what I'm getting for after. So actually, that's when I decided I was going to find a real job.
I often think about like babysitting, like when you're young and like you're looking after other people's kids and like making like, back in the day, like $3-5 an hour. And then like, my other friends in the neighborhood, they would cut people's lawns and make like $20. Like $20, and then they would get other people to do it for them so they can like, and I'm like, it didn't really make any sense to me at the time. Like I was like, this doesn't really make any sense that like I'm looking after your greatest gift.
Your kid. I'm getting $20.
Yeah, and
I'm going to plug them in front of the TV and chillax after that.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, but you should be good at this. You're a caregiver, so you're not compensated for that. Like even though you take CPR and you do all this like you try and bring your best competence to this. But it's. I just think it's literally conversations that we're really not allowed to have or not feel comfortable kind of having when you think about all those initial money conversations. And today, when you're meant to have them, you're having them with folks who have a different lived experience. Like their approach to money is different from yours. A lot of times it's about thinking about mindset of scarcity, and how maybe you operated in an environment where you had to unlearn some of those narratives and navigate differently. Now that you're a place where you're thriving, the tendency to go back to those it's really, really easy. So
it's so interesting that you say that, Lianne. I as you were saying that, I was thinking about a client of mine, another lawyer who, makes 7 figures a year. And one of our first conversations, she said that her dad was a gambler and that, lost the family's money. And she still was kind of that person who, because she was in the personal injury world, she had highs and lows, and she still kept living that same mindset that she saw that she didn't want. So it's so important to have those conversations, because otherwise you end up reliving things that you don't even want for yourselves.
Yeah, that's why I love that we have a lot of different folks who are coming to the financial world and like bringing their lived experience in order to give advice. I love that you're in this space, Jackie. Like, I just think, not only are you an award winner, you're a financial confidant, but you are an example. And representation is just so key. So
I love the whole lived experience thing. And truly, I thank you for saying all that. And I really, truly hope that, my goal is to have more women that look like me and look like you and look like the whole colors of the rainbow out there, come into this industry and help other people who might not necessarily have finance as their first language. Because, in the Caribbean household in particular, and I know other immigrants have told me similar stories, we just don't talk about money. We don't have these conversations. And so it tends to be, in particular for women, a source of shame, because if you don't know sometimes as well, you just don't feel like you can talk about it.
Exactly.
So I just so appreciate. Go ahead, Lianne.
Yeah. So, just really going back, kind of full circle, we really have to find that person that we can talk to about it, who has our best interest, who's knowledgeable and can help us through this, and it might not be one person, right? Again, so you might be engaging a tax accountant, you might be engaging, a business coach who has that financial edge. You also might be engaging a bookkeeper, which I think is really key.
And a therapist if need be, right?
And a therapist. Yeah. Unpack those traumas.
Absolutely, because financial traumas are real. Okay, I've got my own, and I've heard many, many other people's trauma, and nothing wrong in working through them and unpacking them. And I'm just so thankful that you're here. We're at the end of the year, and gratitude is key. So I'm thankful that you were here to share some of your lived experience, how you ended up in this industry doing this, CA wealth management. And obviously I just continue wishing you success in 2023 as you continue your journey. And I'm just so blessed. I feel so blessed that you've shared some really amazing tips for our live community on, mindset, getting organized, being intentional. Live community, do not waste this knowledge, because knowledge without action is like, it's not going to help you. You're not going to make any progress. And you have a whole 365 days coming where you can change the way you do things for the better. So I hope that you enjoyed this live. Please continue to follow us this month. Follow us for the latest updates in finance. We have a lot more year-end tips to share in future lives. Thanks again for coming, Lianne. And thank you, live community, for tuning into the live today. See you next week.